Now, we proceed to the next part of our program. A plenary session titled Innovation as a Catalyst for Economic Transformation. Challenges and Way Forward for the Philippines, organized by the National Economic and Development Authority. I now give the floor to the moderator, Mr. Ramon Logo, Information Officer 5 of NEDA. Please give him a warm round of applause.
Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. So my name is Mon Logok. I am the head of the Knowledge Management Division of the National Economic and Development Authority. Welcome to our session titled Innovation as a Catalyst for Economic Transformation, Challenges and Way Forward for the Philippines. Today, we are going to explore the world of innovation and its profound impact on economic dynamics. We will explore how innovation serves as a powerful force fostering sustainable economic growth and resilience. Our session today aims to provide you with a comprehensive understanding of the strategic dimension of innovation. We'll uncover its far-reaching implications and how it shapes the economic landscape. By the end of our discussion, we hope to offer you a holistic perspective that not only highlights the pivotal role of innovation, but also underscores its strategic importance within the broader context of economic policy and development. In today's session, we are privileged to set the stage for presenting and discussing the National Innovation Agenda and Strategy Document, or you will be hearing this later again and again, NIASD. Okay, tandaan po natin, NIASD, National Innovation Agenda and Strategy Document. The NIASD stands as the cornerstone for expressing our nation's vision and enduring objectives in the realm of innovation. This comprehensive document outlines our long-term goals and provides a strategic roadmap for enhancing innovation governance, expediting innovation endeavors, and promoting public-private partnerships. It is with great pleasure that we are joined today by our main speaker, Assistant Secretary Sarah Daway Ducanes. Yes, and she will guide us through the strategic priorities and policy directions outlined in the NIASD. Her profound insights will shed light on the path forward for innovation in the Philippines. We are also delighted that we have two distinguished discussants joining us today. First, via Zoom, our first discussant will be Mr. Earl Martin S. Valencia, a member of the National Innovation Council and the founding advisor of QBO, it's an innovation hub startup empowering innovators and entrepreneurs. Mr. Valencia will share his valuable insights on practical implications and strategies for innovation-driven economic transformation. Later, we will be joined by the good Secretary Arsenio Balisacan to help us thresh out the details of the NIASD. So, to commence our session, may I kindly request the Secretary to help us play a video. Thank you. Watch this one.
Ang mga Pilipino, we have so much talent, resources, and ideas, but we are yet to attain our development goals. Our ambisyon natin, 2040. Ang matatag, maginhawa, at panatag na buhay para sa lahat. The key to achieving this is through Philippinovation, a whole-of-nation call and commitment to accelerate Philippine progress through innovation. Coined in 2007, Philippinovation aims to harness Filipino creativity and ingenuity. Through the passage of the 2019 Philippine Innovation Act, we have cemented the country's commitment to promote innovation. This landmark legislation aims to improve our country's innovation governance, develop our MSMEs, and enhance our overall global competitiveness. The Philippine Innovation Act established the National Innovation Council, or NIC, with the President of the Philippines as the chair, the NEDA Secretary as the vice chair, 16 cabinet secretaries as ex-officio members, and 7 executive members from the private sector. The NIC is tasked to develop the country's innovation goals, priorities, and long-term national strategy. providing a venue for effective coordination and collaboration to improve innovation governance. In turn, improved innovation governance will steer creativity, ingenuity, collaboration, and inclusion toward developing solutions and producing a positive impact that would benefit all Filipinos. This is the National Innovation Agenda and Strategy Document 2023 to 2032, or NIASD. The NIASD will implement one of the 6 cross-cutting strategies outlined in the Philippine Development Plan 2023 to 2028, establishing a dynamic innovation ecosystem. Developed through a series of co-creation workshops and consultations with various stakeholders from the academe, industry, and government, the NIASD was approved by the National Innovation Council, chaired by President Ferdinand R. Marcos Jr. on June 30, 2023. The goal? To transform our country into a smart and innovative Philippines that is productive and resilient. How? By improving innovation enablers and focusing on key innovation priority areas. The NIASD is motivated by our resolve to avoid our unwanted futures. We seek to avoid these unwanted futures and instead ensure that we achieve our wanted future, our shared vision, the Ambisyon Natin 2040. The aspiration is to have a strongly rooted, matatag, comfortable, maginhawa, and secure life, panatag na buhay for every Filipino. But achieving this vision demands our collective action, and we can do this through Filipinovation. Innovation is not new to Filipinos. Our kababayans can be credited with some of widely known and used innovations. The video phone, karaoke, banana ketchup, yo-yo, and first Windows graphics accelerator chip to healthcare revolutions such as the incubator. Filipino ingenuity has made its mark in the global arena, but through Filipinovation, we can scale it up further. Through Filipinovation, we will have a launchpad for various Filipino products and technologies, a platform for greater coordination and collaboration among the different innovation actors, and a laboratory of constantly refined ideas where we work together and give ourselves a better chance to achieve our Ambisyon Natin 2040. So, our diskarte is to focus on research-driven, intellectual property-based, and market-responsive approaches to turn new ideas into valuable products or services that will ultimately benefit Filipinos. To do this, we have to create a dynamic innovation ecosystem where innovation actors work together in 1. Creating a pervasive culture of innovation. 2. Capacitating actors with facilities and resources. 3. Encouraging collaboration. And 4. Connecting innovations to markets. These are put together to form an innovation ecosystem framework, which will transform the Philippines into having a proactive, smart, and innovative people, a competitive and resilient economy, collaborative and reliable institutions, and an efficient, clean, and sustainable environment. These 4 pillars form an innovation house, each contributing to our vision of a smart and innovative Philippines towards achieving Ambisyon Natin 2040. The key to this house is Filipinovation. The key to progress is in our hands. The key to inclusive and sustainable growth and to better, more secure lives for all Filipinos. With each turn of this key, we become a truly innovative nation. Unlock Filipino potential, unleash Philippine progress.
Thank you. May I now invite Assistant Secretary Sara Dawi Ducanes for her presentation.
Thank you, Mon. A pleasant morning to all the participants here. In this session, please let me walk you through the priority strategies for innovation in the Philippine Development Plan 2023 to 2028 and the newly approved and launched National Innovation Agenda and Strategy Document 2023 to 2032, or what we fondly call the NIASD. Next slide, please. This is the outline of my presentation. We first briefly discuss the need for innovation, then we take a look at the state of Philippine innovation, and then at the innovation as featured in the Philippine Development Plan, and last, the National Innovation Agenda and Strategy Document, or the NIASD. Next slide, please. Next slide. So what do we refer to as innovation? Now, in Republic Act number 11293, or the Philippine Innovation Act of 2019, innovation spans the entire spectrum, going from ideation to commercialization or widespread adoption of a new product, process, or service. Or put a bit differently, innovation involves the creation of new ideas that results in the development of new products or processes, which are then spread, transferred, or adopted across markets and sectors of society. Now, the economic literature, both theoretical and empirical, have long recognized the vital role that innovation plays in affecting socioeconomic transformation. Innovation raises productivity and is thus a key driver of long-run growth and development, and ultimately the improvement of Filipino lives or standard of living. Now, innovation has three key features. We have those in the slide. Novelty. Innovation involves introducing entirely new approaches or the application of existing approaches to new contexts. Implementation. Innovation must be implemented in some form or have some tangible influence. It cannot remain a theoretical idea, policy paper, or an invention that is never adopted or used. And the last is about impact. Innovation must result in public outcomes. The change has to be realized in some form. And ideally, these outcomes include better efficiency, effectiveness, better outcomes, and, increased welfare, consumer satisfaction. Next slide, please. Okay, so why do we need to improve our innovation ecosystem? Using the World Intellectual Property Organization's, or WIPO's, Global Innovation Index, or GII, we have some key observations regarding the state of the Philippine innovation ecosystem. So in this figure here, we have on the x-axis 2013 GII input sub-index, and I'll be going through that a bit later. And then on the y-axis, we have the 2019 GII output sub-index. Okay, so the input sub-index is 6 years, the lag of the GII outputs index that we used in this graph. And here we observe a strong positive relationship between what we call innovation investments or inputs made in 2013 and the more recent GII outputs in 2019. The Philippines is represented there as that red dot, and notice that it's above the trend line, suggesting that the country was able to translate innovation investments or innovation inputs in terms of human capital, innovation infrastructure, etc., into more innovation outputs, and this is in terms of knowledge, technology, and creative outputs, compared with other countries that made the same level of innovation investments. Next slide, please. Now, in this graph, we plot the relationship between 2013 GII output sub-index and the 2019 real GDP per capita. This is in PPP, constant 2017 international US dollars. So just like in the previous graph, here we see a positive relationship, but this time between innovation outputs made in the past and more recent real GDP per capita. And here we notice that the Philippines lies below the trend line. Okay, it's lower. This means that its real GDP per capita is lower than that of other countries with about the same level of innovation outputs in 2013. So this figure here, together with the one that we previously showed, reveals some major challenges of innovation in the Philippines. The first highlights the need to increase both innovation inputs and outputs, as even though we're above the trend line, we're a bit far to the left. And the second emphasizes the need to address constraints in translating innovation outputs into improved standards of living or the quality of life in our country. Next slide, please. Next slide. Now, among our neighbors in the Association of Southeast Asian Nations, or ASEAN, the Philippines has consistently ranked fifth from 2015 to 2023 in the Global Innovation Index, or GII ranking. While the rankings have varied from year to year, we remain in the middle of the pack among our peers in Southeast Asia, while Vietnam, Thailand, Malaysia, and Singapore have remained ahead of us. Throughout the economies ranked in the GII 2023, the Philippines ranked 56th, Vietnam 46th, Thailand ranked 43rd, Malaysia 36th, and Singapore ranked 5th. This means that considerable efforts have to be made if we are to improve our innovation ecosystem. Next slide, please. Now, here we take a closer look at the GII indicators. This enables us to further compare our performance on select indicators under what we call the GII Innovation Sub-Index and the GII Innovation Output Sub-Index, GII Innovation Input Sub-Index, considered under Chapter 8 of the Philippine Development Plan, and that's entitled Advanced R&D, or Research and Development, Technology and Innovation. Now, under innovation inputs, there are 5 pillars. We have their institutions, human capital in research, in terms of the number of researchers per million population, gross expenditure on R&D, or what we call GERD. Okay, and next slide, please. Still under innovation inputs, we have the pillar infrastructure, so that includes ICT access, ICT use, and then there's also what's called market sophistication, okay, where there you see finance for startups and scale-ups, venture capital investors, etc. And the 5th pillar under the Global Innovation Index inputs sub-index is business sophistication, and here you have university and industry R&D collaborations. Now, we highlighted their firms offering formal training because that's the only index or sub-index there where we are doing relatively better than our neighbors. Next slide, please. Pillars 6 to 7 are the GII outputs. Okay, so we have there Pillar 6, knowledge and technology outputs, Pillar 7, creative outputs, and notice that, again, the highlighted or the red coded line there is utility models. That's where we're doing better than the rest of our neighbors. And we can talk about that a bit later on. Next slide, please. Okay, so here we have the challenges. In summary, the challenges we face in our innovation ecosystem are inadequate human capital and resources for R&D, weak linkages and limited collaboration among the innovation actors, limited infrastructure for R&D and capacity to innovate, and fragmented innovation policies and programs. But we can turn these challenges into opportunities by way of enabling policies for innovation, promoting collaboration among innovation stakeholders, increasing government support to programs and initiatives promoting inclusive innovation, and providing avenues for collaboration between the academe and industry. Next slide, please. Okay, now we look at innovation in the Philippine Development Plan, and we go over this briefly as this time last year, the Philippine Development Plan was still being crafted. Okay, so the overall goal of the Philippine Development Plan 2023 to 2028 is to reinvigorate job creation and accelerate poverty reduction, not only by steering the economy back on its high growth path, but more importantly, to begin economic transformation for a prosperous, inclusive, and resilient society by 2028. This is also the second medium-term plan to be anchored on our long-term vision or Ambisyon Natin 2040. That's the Filipinos' collective aspiration for a matatag, maginhawa, at panatag na buhay. Strongly rooted, comfortable, and secure life by 2040. Next slide, please. So here we have the strategic framework of the PDP. Okay, so the very top, we have Ambisyon Natin 2040, that's still the long-term goal, followed by the medium-term goal, that's economic transformation for a prosperous, inclusive, and resilient society. And this PES is the theme of this year's PES conference. Now, at the bottom there, we'll go through the blue rows first, are the foundational areas focused on creating an enabling environment with good governance, bureaucratic efficiency, macroeconomic stability, peace and security, justice, expanded and upgraded infrastructure, while accelerating climate action and strengthening disaster resilience. Red-coded columns there are areas that focus on enhancing individuals' and families' capabilities to enjoy a prosperous life through human capital development, social services, food security, and social protection. And on the right side, you have the green areas. And here we identify cross-cutting strategies to ensure the transformation of our production sectors. Okay, our production sectors will be transformed to generate more quality jobs for our workforce and competitive products and services for both the domestic and the foreign markets. Now, this is to be achieved through the cross-cutting strategies that are underneath. So it's through enhancing inter-industry linkages, promoting trade and investments, competition, improving regulatory efficiency, and there you have advancing R&D technology and innovation. Okay, and so next slide, please. What makes this PDP different from its predecessors are these 6 cross-cutting strategies. Okay, one is digitalization, enhancing connectivity, both physical and also digital, leveraging the role of the private sector, which is very much important in light of the Mandanas-Garcia ruling, servicification, a term coined by NEDA, the Undersecretary Rosemary Edelion, which means that you're just leveraging the high-value services sectors in your manufacturing, in your industry sectors. And you have partnerships bringing in local government units as equal partners in our development agenda. Sorry, that's where the Mandanas-Garcia ruling comes in. Okay, but there we have the 6th cross-cutting strategy, which is establishing a dynamic innovation ecosystem. Okay, so it's putting importance on technology and innovation. Next slide, please. Now, the PDP, so apart from it being a cross-cutting strategy, the PDP also contains a specific chapter on advancing R&D, technology, and innovation. That's in Chapter 8. To address the challenges in R&D, technology, and innovation, we have identified 4 desired outcomes. Okay, so basic research and development and knowledge creation strengthened, market-driven and customer-centered R&D advanced, technology adoption, utilization, and commercialization scaled up, innovation and entrepreneurship accelerated as shown in the strategy framework. Under each outcomes, corresponding strategies to be implemented by both the government and private sector were identified. Notice that the strategy framework for this chapter spans the entire R&D, technology, and innovation generation continuum. Next slide, please. Now, guided by the objectives of the law, the Philippine Innovation Act, and the development priorities espoused in the Philippine Development Plan, the National Innovation Agenda and Strategy document was co-creatively crafted to ensure its contribution to the realization of our medium-term goals and Ambisyon Natin 2040. Specifically, the NIASD is closely knitted with the outcomes and strategies of the PDP. Both the NIASD and the PDP aim to enable a strong innovation ecosystem to achieve national innovation priority areas and long-term innovation goals. A smart and innovative Philippines that is productive, resilient, sustainable, and inclusive. Next slide, please. Next slide. Next slide. Okay, and so this brings us to the implementation of the Philippine Innovation Act, or RA 11293. This act adopts innovation as a vital component of the country's development policies, primarily to drive inclusive development and promote growth. The main goal is to unlock Filipino ingenuity and capacity for innovation, or unlock what we call Filipinnovation. Next slide, please. Now, Section 6 of the Philippine Innovation Act mandates the creation of the National Innovation Council, or NIC. This is a 25-member body chaired by the President, vice-chaired by the Secretary of NEDA, and the NIC is tasked to steer a whole-of-government coordination and collaboration approach to remove the fragmentation in innovation governance. Okay, so as you saw in the video earlier, okay, this has 16 ex-officio members from key government agencies and 7 executive members. These are our private sector representatives from business, MSMEs, academe, scientific community. Next slide, please. Okay, so the NIASD details the country's 10-year vision, long-term goals, and strategies to improve the country's innovation governance on 10 priority areas identified by the National Innovation Council, as well as come up with a monitoring matrix we call NIMEX, which contains indicators and targets to be achieved by 2032. The NIASD is a result of collaborative efforts. We already mentioned that earlier. Whole of government, whole of society approach made through a series of co-creation workshops and consultations with national and regional government agencies, local government units, and the private sector. It was designed to address the needs of innovators at every stage of the innovation process, from ideation to commercialization. Now, on September 27, the NIASD was officially launched at the Metropolitan Theater in Manila. The President, members of the NIC, industry leaders, members of the academe and scientific community, startups, MSMEs, and other innovation actors attended the NIASD launching. And the theme was Reshaping the Future, Advancing Filipinnovation. All right, so considering that the NIASD is a 10-year plan, the formulation adopted a futures thinking exercise in order to identify the possible future scenarios that we do not want to take place and scenarios that we want. So in terms of the scenario that we don't want, okay, we don't want these. A future that is characterized by masakuna, where there are distress and disasters. In this future, technology is continuously advancing, but it cannot keep up and solve the climate crisis. Natural hazards aggravated by climate change and poor planning, coordination, and management cause significant loss of lives and economic damage, etc. Okay? Second unwanted future is mabagal, or being slow to change. In this future, our solutions are more reactive than proactive. And last unwanted future is the scenario of langit lupa, okay, or where you have this future where there are wide inequalities. Okay, in this future, radical and disruptive advancements in technology and decentralization have emerged and are in wide adoption. Governments, regulatory bodies, and the citizens, however, struggle to keep up with these technologies. And in this case, the technology rewards the first adopters, while the laggards, or the laggers and late adopters, remain in deep poverty. All right, and in terms of the wanted future, of course, it's Ambisyon Natin 2040. Okay, and the key to achieving this is to transform the country into a smart and innovative Philippines. Next slide, please. Okay, so here are the elements of a dynamic innovation ecosystem. We said earlier that a cross-cutting strategy in the PDP is to establish a dynamic innovation ecosystem. And this will facilitate the creation and translation of knowledge and ideas into high-quality and competitive products and services to promote economic growth, well-being, social inclusion, and environmental sustainability. A dynamic innovation ecosystem is characterized by the continuous movement of the different components of the ecosystem. In the context of innovation, it means continuous improvement as a result of continuous movement of our various innovation actors. Now, going from our researchers, scientists, and this includes market specialists or content creators and such. And the government then needs to provide the necessary resources for and remove the barriers that hamper these dynamics. So these strategies, the strategies for achieving this are what we call the 4 C's. Okay, first C is about creating a pervasive culture of innovation that is socially relevant, market-driven, and market-oriented. The second C is about capacitating innovation actors with facilities and resources to transform ideas into innovative products, processes, and services. The third C is about collaborating, or this is fostering collaboration amongst the innovation actors and enabling them to use platforms that are active, reliable, and useful. And the fourth one is about connecting innovation actors with potentially commercially viable products to investors and possible markets. Next slide, please. So at the heart of this innovation process is the entrepreneur. Okay, what we call this visionary, who is not only aware of the issues or problems in the market, but is committed to finding solutions to particular societal problems. Given signals and drivers existing in the market, the entrepreneur sets out to find possible solutions already discovered by scientists and researchers and reaches out to engineers or product designers who then design a new product or service that can be introduced to the market as a better alternative. Those in the creative and marketing sectors are also involved in increasing the commercial appeal of the new product, process, or service. The final product, process, or service is then introduced to the market, and user experience will then be continuously monitored to further improve this new product, process, or service. Next slide, please. Okay, so this is a graphic depiction of that dynamic innovation ecosystem. At the very base there, we have our innovation enablers. So we have the National Innovation Council as the primary innovation governing body. And then we have our innovation programs, infrastructure, funding, and our policies, innovation policies. And these will enable our innovation actors, namely our scientists, researchers, engineers, product designers, marketing specialists, and of course, our entrepreneur. Okay, now we'll skip the remaining slides here. We can go over them later. Next slide, please. Next slide. Next slide. Okay. Now, all these innovation enablers shall put in place conditions for efficient and competent governing bodies, responsive policies, appropriate infrastructure, effective programs, and adequate financing support to encourage innovation across all sectors. For the period 2023 to 2032, emphasis will be given on these 10 priority areas identified by the National Innovation Council. These sectors have faced severe challenges brought about by the COVID-19 pandemic and the resulting restrictions on economic and social activities. Moreover, various indicators suggest that these sectors are ready for change. And more importantly, certain domestic and external developments may influence these changes in an undesirable way unless they are properly governed to ensure they lead to the future we want. Okay, so this is the last slide. Okay, in summary, this is the National Innovation Agenda Framework, which is shaped like a house. The roof has our ultimate aspiration, at least for until 2040, ambition natin 2040. And this will be achieved through a smart and innovative Philippines, which is characterized by, and you have the 4 pillars there: proactive, smart, and innovative people, competitive and resilient economy, collaborative and reliable institutions, and efficient, clean, and sustainable environment. And under these 4 pillars are the 10 priority areas. Okay, under, for instance, proactive, smart, and innovative people, we have learning and education, health and well-being. Under competitive and resilient economy, we have, say, food and agribusiness, manufacturing and trade, and so on. Now, a smart and innovative Philippines will then be achieved through this dynamic innovation ecosystem that we are trying to establish. And in turn, this dynamic innovation ecosystem will help improve innovation governance in our country. And this involves our innovation enablers, the NIC policy, infrastructure programs, and financing, referring to institutions, policies, and resources governing policymaking and implementation, such as program delivery and monitoring, as well as coordination and collaboration across public institutions and with relevant stakeholders. And that's a penultimate slide. That's the last slide. Here is the next slide, please. So if you'd like to access the full version of the NIASD, you may scan this QR code. Maraming salamat po.
Hello. Thank you very much, Assistant Secretary Sarah Dow Ducanes. May I invite Mr. Earl Martin Valencia for his insights? Earl?
Hello,
Hi,
can you
Earl.
hear me?
Yes.
Hello. Yeah.
Yes, go ahead, Earl. Can you check your mic?
Yep. Yeah, I think I
Yeah,
just
there,
hear
there,
some
there.
music in the background or something like that. But I think in general, my reflection really about building up an innovation
Yes,
ecosystem.
again, just to introduce again, Earl Martin Valencia is part of the National Innovation Council and the founder of QBO or Cubo. It's an innovation hub startup for empowering innovators and entrepreneurs. All right? Please
Great.
go ahead, Earl.
Yeah. Thank you so much for that introduction. A little bit also of background here. So, I have kind of a unique position, or at least unique perspective, to talk about innovation. One, really as a builder of innovation. So I started out my career as an aerospace engineer, actually, right? So as an aerospace engineer, built government related, actually, defense systems. And then I transitioned towards the business side. So my favorite subject in MBA school was macroeconomics. So that was good. And then ended up in the innovation team of Cisco in Silicon Valley, where our thought there was how do we then build the next $1 billion business for the company. And how we did that actually is we did a global competition. So we had 100 countries participate in the idea generation prize of Cisco, which I ran. So that was really interesting because what you found out is that innovation, while knowledge of maybe certain insights is available anywhere in the world, it's the application of that knowledge in different geographies is what actually was very interesting. So, for example, when you talk about AI, right, or data, um, how AI and data is consumed or at least interpreted, let's say in Africa or in Southeast Asia, and the application of that might be different from someone think about an idea, let's say in New York or San Francisco, right? So So that's one thing too. So for us in as the Philippines, we have to think very clearly of what innovations can we then adopt, but then what innovations can we use for the unique situation that is inherent to the needs of the Philippines, right? So I think that's probably an important part of this, right? Because, you know, I think what we have it in the NIASD, there's really a lot of these pillars here, but ultimately we don't want to copy, how specifically just how Silicon Valley does it, but then what applications are very important for us so that it makes sense, right? Because we can talk about innovation as business people, as economics people, but if it doesn't really apply to the common Filipino and they can't relate to it, then we don't do our job, right? I think that's really the most important thing. Um, and then actually, I ended up transitioning into being an investor. So I ended up getting recruited by MVP Manny Pangilinan to lead corporate development and strategy for Smart and PLDT, where I ended up investing actually in multiple technology startups at the idea stage. And that's another thing I think that I'm challenging everyone here, right? Like, how do we prop up our capital allocation into risky ventures? Why? Because what I found out in most economies in the world, especially emerging economies, um, risky ventures actually don't get invested on, right? So they all rely, let's say, on Silicon Valley or New York to actually take on the risk. But what we see, actually, when I did a chart before where just one big hit, let's say one big hit of a new company. Let's say think about it where I did a chart before of like 5 companies, all venture capital backed. If you stack the revenue to get annual revenue per year, so it's like a Cisco, HP, Oracle, Google, I think Microsoft. Their revenue of 5 companies, all venture capital backed, is more than the Philippine economy, right? So why are we think about this, right? Because imagine that if we think about the reverse, right? If we find out on how to produce more of these high impact, high growth, global potential, yet risky ventures at the beginning, if we just find one, imagine that the contribution of just one company potentially could be 10 to 20% of our entire economy, right? So I think that's one side there that I want to challenge everyone here is that if you especially work for a company that does capital allocation, like a bank or investment company or whatnot, I think now is the time to capitalize on this innovation drive, right? Um, so after Smart and PLET, I actually ended up back in Wall Street. So I worked at a hedge fund called Bridgewater and Charles Schwab, which is an investment house. And what I learned there as well was, um, kind of the notion of scale, right? And how do we think about scale in our types of innovations, right? So let's not think about how do we just produce something for, let's say, our community, but how do we actually allocate capital for something to be at a minimum national scale at day one? So what's the difference between, and maybe this is something that we have to think about, what's the difference between a SME and an innovation enterprise, right? And its scale, right? Because an SME is you put $1 in and you get $2 back. If you put $5 in, you get $10 back. But an innovation driven enterprise actually is that if you put $1 in, you get maybe $1 back. But if you put $5 in, you get 100 back, right? Because your cost could be small, but your scale could just keep on growing, right? With the same cost structure. So I think that's it. And then my last part maybe my last point here, which the current team are also on. So, in addition to being an executive member of the NIC, actually I have also a venture-backed startup. So, we have a couple of big investors from the Philippines, but most of my investors are from the US and Europe, and it's in AI and financial services, right? So, I think the last point is we have to take a bet, all of us, on the human capital side of innovation, probably more than ever now, right? If we want to be an upper middle income economy at some point, we have to believe and capacitate, I guess we're going to call that, the human capital of the Philippines to be more adapt to innovation and global standard, right? Because we all know, right? We all believe, and I believe that we are probably one of the best and brightest and most creative people in the world. But how do we harness that to create our own products, and to build entrepreneurs? What you see probably even in the landscape in the Philippines is that many people use the Philippines as a market. I mean, for example, I love BPO, right? The Philippines, 10 plus% of the GDP is in the BPO industry. But who owns the BPO companies? Is it a Filipino, right? And if not, who is it, right? So I think that's the question, right? Like I think this next phase of growth, if we find the next quote unquote BPO and if that the innovation economy, can we then take a bet so that Filipino founders build Filipino companies, then scale to the world, and then potentially cycle back and invest again back to Filipino founders if they become successful, right? That's the formula of Silicon Valley, right? The formula of Silicon Valley is founders do well, and then they then fund next founders, right? So the circle of innovation. So for us in the Philippines, how do we make sure that we build a circle of innovation of people, and we help people build new companies. They then create wealth and prosperity through their products, but then they also fund the next generation of entrepreneurs. I think that's really the challenge that we need to have is we should believe in our own human capital, build it up, and then believe that we can build our next unicorn together, right? So yeah, that's like my reflections on it, and I believe in it, and I think this conference and all of you, hopefully it's a challenge that we should achieve, Ambition 2040 together, and innovation I think is one of the biggest drivers of it. Thank you.
Thank you, Earl. We'll go back to some of the points you've raised, but before that, may I invite Assistant Secretary Sarah Daway Ducanes and of course the good Secretary Arsenio Balsacan to join us on stage. Thank you so much, Sec RC.
Thank you.
Hi, Earl. Before we go to some of the points you've raised, Secretary RC and Assistant Secretary Sarah, I'd just like to go back to the presentation a while ago. And to me, it feels like it's a case of same, but different. So we've been talking about innovation for the past decades. How is it different this time?
Okay, thank you very much. But first, hi to Earl. Thank you for joining us in this session. So as we mentioned earlier, innovation is not just about coming up with new products, processes. This has to be well commercialized, widely adopted, and has to have impact for it to be considered innovation. Okay, so what's new now is that we are now cognizant of the challenges, the barriers that we have to forming this or establishing this dynamic innovation ecosystem, and the government is committed to doing away with these barriers. Now, starting with the 4 Cs that we mentioned earlier, it's about creating this pervasive culture of innovation. We hope starting from the kids up, older, then just connecting our innovation actors. As Earl said, that the mentoring
Yeah.
is
A circular
key
innovation
here,
ecosystem.
right? In order to start that virtuous cycle of innovation, and just fostering collaboration amongst these innovation actors. And last is about capacitating them, last but not the least.
Yeah, before I ask a follow-up question to that, Earl, how is it different this time?
So I think the key here and what I got inspired actually by the NIC is that we are putting a stand, right, on what type of innovation we want as a Filipino, right? I mean, I think the 10 priorities there, you have something with the blue economy, you have something with like, human capital, obviously something like, in financial technology, but in agriculture, climate change, like these are the things that I think we can be good at, right? And I think before, I was actually investing since 2011 in the Philippines, right? And we are trying to copy the Philippines. We try to copy Silicon Valley or others. I think that's innovation that maybe happened 10 years ago. I think this next phase of innovation is what we need, but then what we can lead, right? So I think that's the key now. And I'm excited, obviously. NIC is, groundbreaking, right? Imagine that I talk to other counterparts of innovation, and very few actually that the president of the country leads the Innovation Council. And that I think is a stand that we have as the Philippines, that this is serious and we're not waiting, right, compared to others.
Mhm. Right, right, right. Secretary RC, with that, uh, I'd just like to go back to the present to what was presented by Assistant Secretary Sarah. How critical is this program, this NIASD, in terms of the economic growth as outlined in the PDP?
As you might have noticed, no? Uh, Sarah showed the connection between the PDP and this NIASD. No? And what we are trying to address in the PDP are the constraints to growth, constraints to investment, and essentially, the same constraints that you see there are the constraints you see in innovation. So if you address, for example, let's give you a typical puzzle. Is if you look at the statistics, you have 99% of the total firms in the country are small and medium enterprises, right? And very few of them graduate to become, you know, is the small and medium enterprises to graduate into a large one. I remember that U-shaped curve, and the one and that U-shaped curve where you have the number of establishments and the number of establishments and the value of those establishments, in the share of the establishments in the entire economy. So you have a big number of those firms, 99%, accounting for a very small proportion of the total output, right? And very few of those small firms actually graduate to become micro enterprises, to become small, to become medium. So the question is why, right? So if you understand why firms are not able to graduate, why entrepreneurs, why enterprises are not able to graduate, then we would have discovered the secrets of this whole business of innovation. And it's, you know, many a times you hear things like a, a damaged culture, right? But that is so easy to dismiss, right? Because if you find a Filipino is not working, doing well here in this country, when he migrates, he will do well, right? So there are certainly constraints that they face here that are quite, you know, not the constraints when they go to other environments. So we have to discover those ones and address these issues. And clearly, to me, one of those is have to do with access to finance, access to technology. Those are, you know, you can try to identify what those problems with respect to access to finance and access to technology. I think that you can already move the discussion forward in a big way.
Yeah. Um, Earl mentioned a while ago that we ought to take a big bet, right, Earl? And I'd just like to point out while Sarah, Assistant Sarah was discussing presenting the NIASD, that we are, and I was also browsing the document, we are only spending about 0.3% of our budget. And that is too low compared to of the GDP, only 0.3%. And based on the presentation, we are targeting 1%. How do we go about this?
Ah, it's a big question, right? you know, yes, the norm is for a developing country is 1% of GDP invested in R&D. You know, spend on R&D. Some countries like Vietnam spend more. Although Vietnam is still quite below 1, but better than us. Now, I think to move to 1, we need to lobby very hard. You know how the power of the purse, you know, is defined, right? It's Congress that allocates the resources, and we need to educate our policymakers, our leaders, you know, that about the importance of research, of R&D in the life of a nation. And that's what we are trying to do now in government, particularly between NEDA and DBM. We are trying to link these programs with and projects priorities in the way the budget is crafted, no? So that we can see and we can easily identify whether the project that's funded is a priority specified or identified by, based on the PDP, no? So we're trying to get that, and so if you go, the good test of that is if I want a number like how much are we spending now in R&D, I just text Secmina of DBM, and she can easily generate that number now. So there's a greater connection now between the budgets as prescribed by our plans, and those ones that are actually funded and budgeted by allocated by Congress. So it's a work in progress, but you know, I think that there is also that power of evidence that what I discovered and what I've been experiencing is when you have good evidence to show when you meet the politicians, Congress, you can have a better success rate, you know, in getting what you want. And that's for, you know, so it's a chicken and egg. We need R&D, we need to invest in research so that we can generate more evidence, more innovations. And that, you know, has a dynamics of its own.
Yes, Sarah?
Then just to add to that, because the Secretary mentioned financing Of course, we also have to increase the absorptive capacity for that. So that's where capacitating our innovation actors come in, spending more on education so that we produce more scientists, engineers, all these.
Yes, sir. Before one more question, just a follow-up question. The past years, it's characterized that we are underspending. While I think this is the target, I just like to address again with this underspending concern and how it will affect the innovation strategies.
Well, the underspending problem has a number of dimensions now, but the most common one is it's the preparation of the government in relation to all these procedures that are mandated by law, no? That you have the bidding, the contracting. And, what is quite surprising for an outsider, for example, is that over the late years, the economy has been expanding, and the budget accordingly has been growing rapidly. But the bureaucracy hardly changed, and the institutions and the regulations hardly changed. So the COA, the budget rules crafted 2 decades ago. In the meantime, the economy has doubled, and still, the same rules. So, like you can only this level of budget can be approved only by this level of staff, division chief, the director, and so on. So those rules have remained the same. So you can imagine how the bureaucracy has become overburdened over the years, and so what we are trying to do now is to get an amendment of the COA, of the budget process, so that we make it more amenable to recent developments.
All right. Yes, sir.
Thank you very much. It's all good to see all of those plans, but I'd like to point out one item that everybody can relate to. I pulled out from my wallet my national ID. Okay. This started in 2020. I got my ID as a bond paper sized document because the plastic driver's license type IDs are still not available. That's not the problem. I retired from banking after 41 years. The one missing thing here is a signature. So you cannot use this to open an account. In the best practice countries, like as Dr. Kakwani could relate in India, the Aadhaar system of ID is that you can open an account with only one ID. The other best practice countries that I've been aware of is Turkey in 2000 and Argentina in 2010. Question, the QR code cannot be read.
Yeah.
So, so I cannot open an account with this ID in my bank. No? So, with all of these plans, my only point is, let's start the basic building block right. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Asaksara?
Yes, let me just address that because that was also my problem in the beginning. I also got, like you, Sir Alex, no, I got mine bond-sized and I just had to cut it. And I scanned it using the QR code scanner in my phone and it wouldn't work. Until someone pointed it out to me that you have to go to the PSA website. They have a special app there which when you use it to scan that, will, bring you to a page that says that your identity is verified. So that the app has to be, the PSA app has to be used. It works.
All right. Um,
The problem is when you're at the bank, you cannot open the account. I cannot tell the bank to go to the PSA website and verify me.
We have members of the BSP.
But have we?
here.
So the issue is, have we come up with the correct QR code already? Because when PSA USEC Dennis Mapa testified in Congress, he said they had to revise the QR code to admit of additional fields. Okay, I produced a 350-page coffee table book, and you can put all of that in one QR code. So adding just a few fields is not an excuse for the delay, no? But be that as it may, bottom line, do we have the correct QR code already? And when will it be distributed? Thank you.
just a quick reply.
I can only
A quick
speak for
reply.
mine. It works.
Yeah.
Thank you.
All right.
No, okay, let me, I've been talking with PSA, with Dennis Mapa on this issue, because just to be clear, no, for context, this project, ID system was contracted some years ago before this current administration. But for one reason, the priority was, and this was before COVID, the priority was the printing of physical ID rather than generation of digital ID. That was the priority. The argument then of PSA was that when they did a survey of the population, they found out that the preference of most of the people surveyed was the physical ID, particularly the lower income groups. At that time, only a small proportion of the population had smartphones. Okay, that's why the preference was the physical ID. Of course, things have changed after the ID, after the pandemic. No, the demand for a digital interfacing for digital ID and digital documents have increased, no, so much, and then the smartphones have also become more accessible even for low-income groups. So now people want the digital ID. Okay, the problem was that contract was awarded long ago, and they had to complete the printing of the ID, which was taking too long because they were also suffering from all this delivery, and the only mechanism to deliver the physical ID was through the field post, and printed IDs were accumulating in field post offices undelivered, millions of those IDs. Okay, so that's a problem. So the solution was that the president himself put in place was to accelerate the generation of the digital ID so that it can be issued immediately, no? And the intention was to get this in the next few months, not a few more years, no? So that's now the two track producing the digital ID, and that work is now with the Department of Information and Communication Technology, DICT. They are now mandated by the Office of the President to ramp up the production of the digital ID to all citizens. And the printing will continue. And unfortunately, we were not able to yet, to get that legal issue because we also went to explore the legal approaches, no, to solve that issue of the printing of the physical ID, because at the rate they were going, it would take them years to complete the total printing, not completed this year, not next year, but more year. You know. So obviously that was not acceptable because we needed the digital ID, the one ID immediately, and for us that has additional use and additional benefit. We have seen for example, the delivery of ayuda was so much associated with leakages and undercoverage, right? And you can improve the efficiency of the delivery of assistance substantially if you have that that ID, digital transactions expanded, and also with inclusive finance and all that, So it's very much needed now, not next year, and that's why we have to shift to another approach, no?
May I ask for a few more minutes just to wrap up? We're not exactly innovating here, but just for a few more minutes just to wrap up the session. Prof. Randy, okay. So, setting that aside, I'm sorry, sir. Let me just ask first, going back to the budget. This is actually a concern. I would like also Earl to share his insight. You have identified 10 priority sectors, but what strategies really can we employ to ensure that budget allocations for innovation remain efficient and effective? Enough po ba? Sir Earl, dun sa 10 priority sectors, may I know your thoughts?
I mean, to be honest, right? Like, let's say the
Are
allocation
there
of the
go ahead, sorry.
the allocation obviously of the Innovation Council with the Innovation Act is 1 billion pesos, right? But I mean, if you translate that to dollars, right, it's actually not that big. But it's a good start. So I think that's something that we have to think about, right? Like, I mean, ultimately, we have to unlock, you know, really the wealth of the Philippines, and also the capital markets of the country, right? And if we really want to lead um, into certain sectors, and we probably have to, over time, double, triple, quadruple, even 10 times that budget over time. But I think, let's take what we can, use this really as a catalyst. And what, it's like RC said, right? Like, success breeds more believers, right? That's really how innovation works. I mean, imagine that if, let's say, Google wasn't created, there'll be less venture capitalists, right? If Facebook was not invested in by a venture capitalist, there'll be less people taking risk also in building new companies. So we have to find our version of it to show the world, to show ourselves, to show our legislators, to show our population that we can do it as the Philippines, and that's it. Actually needs more than just 1 billion pesos, but maybe in the future it may be 1% of the GDP, if not maybe 5% of GDP. We focus on R&D and innovation, but it's all of us now. The time is now for us to actually build our own story, but we need to build our successes today, right? So that's how I think about it.
All right. As Sarah, you were saying, with regard to access for funding, I think you mentioned in your at the heart of the innovation process. So, Just to wrap up this session, while it seems that the mechanism for feedback is integrated into the NIASD, how can we be assured that entrepreneurs like Earl, entrepreneurs like me, will be able to, provide our feedback to the whole program?
Well, from the very beginning of the crafting of the NIASD, as we mentioned earlier, it's a product of a co-creation process. So feedback mechanisms have always been in place. Every time NEDA crafts something, and we take on not only a whole of government, but also a whole of government approach. We bring in key private sector stakeholders into the crafting. We brought in into the crafting of the NIASD. And well, not only that, the National Innovation Council Secretariat is in the process of coming up with specific targets, indicators to monitor, so that we can monitor our targets effectively. We call this the NIMEX.
So we will be expecting this in the as a product of the National Innovation Council, right? Okay. Sorry po. I think it's 12:07 right now, and we do hope that we have more time sana. But we'll just take a new questions, and we'll email you for whatever comments that you still have. But right now, I'm going to give Earl 2 minutes just to share us his last thoughts. Earl?
Yeah, so I think for me, innovation is an iterative process, right? So I think it is important to acknowledge that the NIC is created. We have a law that actually says that innovation is a priority of the government. And how do we use that? I guess as entrepreneurs, as economists, as business people, I think that's a good signal. And I think because of that, then let's all work together to find our story, our unique Philippine innovation story, our Philippine innovation story, and let's unlock, right, human capital, um, venture capital, and hopefully that will translate to what I call as changing of the culture capital of the Philippines, right, where now hopefully the future will build a bigger and bolder innovation culture in the country.
Thank you, Earl. Asak Sarah?
Can we save the best for last? Well, yeah, all I can think of is that we're all in this together. Government cannot do this on its own. So that's why in the NIASD, we've really emphasized there the importance of collaboration, okay, of connecting the different innovation actors. And the role of government here is to enable okay, these innovation actors. So we need the help of everyone here if we are to achieve our targets, primarily ambition natin 2040. Thank you.
Thank you. Dr. Balisacan, last thoughts?
Well, at the end of the day, if you look at the sources of growth over the long haul, it is really productivity growth. And that productivity growth is not a manna from heaven. We have to work on it. And innovation, investing in innovation is key to that. So to achieve that desired future, matatag, maginhawa at panatag na buhay, we have to make it work. We have to make innovation work because that's the only way we can get this these increases in incomes. That's especially income growth that's inclusive to be sustained over a long period of time.
Thank you so much. I think the message is clear. Let's do this together. This is not a one-off program. It's a 10-year plan, and we do hope we see your participation in all this. We also hope that NEDA will be hosting a session like this. I think we've seen the interest in the crowd. Yeah.
just a last invitation. So the National Innovation Agenda and Strategy document is now on a roadshow. We had the Luzon, Balance Luzon roadshow a couple of weeks back, but then the one in Visayas in Iloilo will be scheduled on the 16th to the 18th, and then the one for Mindanao that will be in Davao is from November 28 to 30. We hope to see you there.
With that, we thank you for this session, Dr. Balisacan, Dr. Sarah, and Earl. Thank you so much for joining us today.